So, after my last update, the Conservative councillor, Johno messaged me, and we've been speaking, and he actually sent me a really nice personal message regarding the Ford, regarding Rufford Ford, and he was also very kind enough to be able to then say, you can post this, post my reply. So, here is Johno, the Conservative's reply to my last post.
Hi mate, hope you're well. Thought I'd do you a quick video. So as you're aware, one of the first comments I mentioned to you when you originally put up your video to do with Rufford Fords is we couldn't go back to how it was, and I think you'd agree with that. Is it just wasn't manageable, like towards the end, how there wasn't a loss of life from dangerous driving, I have no idea. But as you know, I represent an area of Boulderton that at the moment uses the Ford, I used to use the Ford, to cut across into Mansfield or into Sherwood Pines and around that area, and it being closed actually hindered me and my residents. So that's why I was actually always in support of it being reopened where it could be. And I think for me is if we can put measures in place that will allow the council to look at reopening, it actually is a positive. And I had a meeting with the leader of the council last week who I believe is minded to look at reopening it, obviously with major measures in place that will stop what we've all seen, near hits, near collisions, people driving dangerously to the point where cars will only be able to drip through. But I'd advise you to speak to the council leader about his plan, and that it wouldn't be fair for me to say what he's going to do. However, the conversation I had with him was about something that we have discussed, is about the commercial filming, and the filming there were lots, you would agree, there was lots of cowboys and lots of people that were actually putting themselves in danger and the drivers in danger and distracting drivers that made it dangerous. And then the videos that they were putting up that were then attracting more people, that were then bringing in more people, and it was just a dangerous loop of carnage towards the end, and I'm sure you would agree with that. So by bringing in a commercial licensing, to be clear, if it's brought in, it would literally be in areas that is deemed by the council, that is already brought in Manchester, Salford, Leicestershire also have a commercial licence, but they have it for social media. Nottinghamshire doesn't have it for social media at the moment, and as I'm sure you'd agree, that's where we're going. Most commercial things when it comes to adverts and stuff is going to be social media. And I think the example that I gave you is at the moment, the likes of, say, Coca-Cola, if they came to Nottinghamshire and were to do an advert for TV, they'd have to pay for a commercial license. If they were solely to put that on YouTube, they wouldn't have to pay because the rule doesn't hit that at the moment. And I think that, for me, is why we have to look at bringing in commercial licensing areas. And I think the Ford is actually a good example of why you'd want to bring that in. As you know, the top 20 videos of the Ford at the moment have reached nearly 20 million people. That would be equivalent, depending on the ratios adverts, would be in the region of about £100,000 to the content creators, depending on what they paid for adverts, because they were all advert videos I checked. And I'm sure that residents, when they actually understand that people are making considerable amounts of money from the top 50, 60 videos on that, and I think we need to understand that that's the direction the council is going into. Now, it's not my decision, it's not my final decision. I've gave all the policies to the council leader, including all the other councils that are already doing this and implementing it, and it'll be up to him to make the decision. But he was kind of minded to look at it, as well as the other measures that he's looking at. And I think that's right. And we're not saying that everybody filming would need a license or everybody filming can't film. That's not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is it would give the council the ability, if they deem to do so, to bring in a commercial license. And that would actually help social media content creators, because if they go to an area and they've gone through the proper things of letting the council know, showing them their insurance, getting the approval to film there, and somebody else turns up, they can ring the council going up, this person hasn't got permission to be here, could you send somebody down and remove them, please? And then that would be up to the council then to investigate, should they be there and should they not be there. But this wouldn't be everywhere. The best place that I understand at the moment is saying Bolton in Greater Manchester, that have loads of houses and buildings where they film and do lots of filming. Now, they have commercial licensing for lots of different areas, and I believe social media content creators are also in there because they'd make just as much money in the top end, in the top scale, and that would be up to the council to have a look at the policy and who they wanted to bring it into. But this is just another way of the council having a little bit more confidence that they can control the area with the Ford with Rufford Ford in particular, with the measures they're putting into, and saying, well, if it does get out of control, we can bring this measure in, we can keep it open for residents, keep it open for residents in Boulderton and Newark and around that want to use it, and it won't get out of control. And that is in the benefits for everybody, right? Is if you have measures in place that you can bring forward and to keep it open, that's in the best case for everybody. Won't be in the best case for YouTubers that want to see the carnage and get them views. In the best interest for everybody, for safety elements and for thingy. And the thing is the council could decide it'll be a permit, but it'll be very low cost or no cost, and that would be within their gift. Now, I haven't said that we should charge for permits. I've just said that we should have permits, and that some money could be recouped if people don't get permits. But it would be up for the council. But we'll have to see what happens. It's watch this space. But I think we need to make sure that area is kept open for the residents, but we also need to make sure it's kept safe. Anyway, mate, have a good one. Nice speaking to you. See you later. Bye.
So there you have it. And I've got to say, Johno Lee, thank you very much for replying to me. That was really, really kind of you. We have reached out to Councillor McBarton, but unfortunately didn't receive a reply. I do think it is amazing that Johno Lee has messaged back. And I agree with a lot of what Johno says. I do. It'd be pointless me sitting here going, oh, it didn't turn into a circus show. Rufford Ford became chaotic. It wasn't chaotic during the week. And this is my argument. It was not chaotic during the week, but it was allowed to become chaotic at the weekends. I recently did an interview with the BBC, and as I said on the BBC, the parking is the biggest issue there. You've got the car park where people could park. Once that was full, people then started to line either side. And no wonder the residents were fed up. No wonder the residents were fed up with the amount of people there. However, that's not the YouTubers' fault. People chose to go there. People chose to park there. And the council chose to not enforce the parking restrictions. Johno Lee has come up with a really good suggestion. He has said, why not make it residents parking all the way down? Then it's enforceable 24/7. You won't have the parking on the sides of the road. If you haven't got the parking, you haven't got the amount of crowds. Where we do have a difference of opinion is the filming. So originally when we started filming, there were just 3 of us down there. It was easy to film, nothing was difficult. A couple more joined. There was then 5 of us that would regularly film at weekends, and the handful of 2 or 3 of us during the week. Never any issues. It then became busier. Where we've got the issue is commercial filming. So that means you're monetized. So if you're not monetized, what they're saying is there's no filming restriction for you. So then that light, everyone's going to turn up to try and get monetized. Where it needs to be tackled is, and we only originally filmed in the winter time when it was deep and people would drive in 1.5 foot of water and they'd drown their car. The residents didn't like that, so they got all the water drained out so it was in shallow, and lo and behold, they didn't like that either because it was back to the splashing. But the viewing gallery was built there in 2011. Hang on. We didn't even start the YouTube channels till about 2019, 2020. So years before we turned up, people were driving through splashing. We just then went and filmed it. Talking of the filming, Johno's idea of if Coca-Cola, for example, go and shoot a video somewhere, then they have to pay. I completely understand that because that's fiction. What we are filming, and this is my argument, is we are filming more journalistic. There is no fiction. We're not making up. We are just filming in public what is going on. So I think there is some grounds to be thrashed out there, but I do agree, completely agree, it cannot return to the circus show that it was. I don't think it needs over engineering. There's certainly some easy solutions. Speed wasn't really the factor down there. It's a lot smaller there than it looks, and if a car goes through it, even 20 miles an hour, it looks a lot faster than it really is. However, one theory, very easy, a set of traffic lights either side, both set to red, and then when a car comes along, it uses its sensors, one's on red, then goes to green, lets the car through, goes back to red, and you've got an easy solution through. It's not difficult, it's not rocket science. You could even put a chicane in there if you like to as well. And of course, put the parking as residents only. and then the residents could park outside their house, because at the moment there's yellow lines, but the yellow lines aren't enforced by the council. So there you have it. Leave a comment, keep it nice, keep it friendly, and I've got to say, I do think it is absolutely amazing to see two political figures working together to try and get the Ford opened for the local people and their constituents in the local villages, not just the main village of Rufford Ford, but for the surrounding villages. They're trying to work together, two different political parties trying to work together to get the Ford reopened for everyone. Thanks for watching, leave a comment.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
Good life crisis 101X, soaked again.
You can't got the broke that one.
He fell over!
He's running, I turned round, someone's there. Oh, yep, I didn't move.